PowerTech fans, we're headed to the Coaches Site Live. Join us June 12th to 14th in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan for the premier coaching event of the year. Coaches, if you're serious about getting better, TCS Live is your one-stop shop. You'll be surrounded by some of the sharpest minds in hockey from the NHL, NCAA, CHL, and international levels, all sharing real actionable coaching strategies in a way that's actually engaging. I got a small taste of this year at their St. Andrews College event, and it was unreal. The presenters were top-notch, and the coaches were all super dialed in and hungry to learn. But this is going to be a 10x experience. Beyond the elite presentations, you'll have two massive networking socials, a prime opportunity to connect, share ideas, and build relationships that can elevate your career and coaching skill set. And for PowerTech, we'll be there too. We'll be hanging out, connecting with coaches, and recording some live podcasts. So if you're a listener, you can come up and say hi and we can talk hockey. Don't miss this opportunity. Head to thecoachesitelive.com right now and use code PowerTech to save 10% on your ticket. We're super fired up to be involved with this event, and we'll see you guys there. Yeah.
So relax.
Yeah, that leads perfect into, I want to talk about the OHL Cup and the draft coming up and stuff a little bit, because this is an example that I gave. It'll lead right into the OHL Cup thing that's going on right now, but one of the examples that I give to a lot of the kids that are getting towards that draft year age, the OHL draft, a lot of them are really concerned about that, like playing on a really good team so that they can go to the OHL Cup, for example, and then they get seen more and all that stuff. And I'm not saying it doesn't help, like, because it can help to be there and whatever. But the example that I gave them, which was recent, is I remember our 2007 born Windsor and Sun County teams played in the first round of the Alliance playoffs a few years ago. And I remember because I went and watched some of the games, and the winner of that series got to go to the OHL Cup and the loser did not. And Sun County ended up winning the series and went on. This was Arky's team, right? So Arky's team got to go to the OHL Cup. Cam ended up getting drafted to Kitchener. I don't remember who else from that team would have got drafted.
Hickson.
Yeah, Hickson,
London.
who was good, to London. Yeah. Any other 07s on that team?
Wraith was on Windsor.
Yeah, he was Windsor.
Probably not.
So let's say, even if there was one I'm not remembering right now, let's say there was 3. Okay, they went to the OHL Cup. They were there. So they played their round robin 4 games, whatever. I don't think they ended up moving on. But regardless, so they went there. The 07 Windsor team did not. So their season was done. So all the scouts are at OHL Cup and not watching the Windsor team. Windsor had 3 kids drafted that year. The 2007 Windsor team. They didn't go to the OHL Cup. It was Smith, Jones, Geniac off that 07 team. Okay. I think Sun County, they might have had 2
or 3,
right?
Yeah, I think they had less.
Arky and Hickson. Oh, Jovo, right? So let's say it's 3. Maybe there's a 4th I'm forgetting. It was the same, is my point, right? So these guys got to go to OHL Cup. Their team was both teams were okay. Like, neither of them were great, but the one got to go to OHL Cup and the one didn't. Did it end up really mattering? Not really, because the guys that probably should have got drafted off Windsor did, and the guys that probably should have got drafted off of Sun County did. You know. And so if there was a plus or minus that a kid would have gotten to the 12th to 15th round, or the kid that went in the 5th round would have went in the 4th round, like, did it change it that much? And I think the answer is no. By the time the OHL Cup rolls around, like, scouts have been around all year watching. Like, they got a pretty good idea of who's where. You know, they've been at the big tournaments already. They've been so.
The thing when you get to the big tournaments, like OHL, you get to the OHL semis and finals, you just get more eyes on you for a longer time, which could be good or bad. But it's not, I don't think if you have a good OHL Cup and you're like, let's say you're like a 3rd round pick-ish, you're right in the top 90, top 100, you're top 100, let's say top 100. You're rated somewhere between 50 and 100. I don't think having an OHL Cup, a good OHL Cup, like 1 week or 4 games or 5 games, is going to knock you down. Like, oh, he's now a 1st rounder. He's going to be maybe, you know what, I really liked him, and this tournament confirmed what I like about him. So if we have a spot in, maybe he moves up. Maybe he moves up. You can, but it's not going to definitively move up. And the same as if you don't have your best OHL Cup, it's not going to move you from the 1st round or 2nd round down to the 9th. Like, it's going to say, okay, it wasn't his best tournament, but you know what I mean?
And so that's kind of my point and why I like talking about it, because I hear with a lot of the parents now that I talk to, because I have so many of these conversations, and that is just kind of to your point. I'm not saying it's not a consideration either, Like, I know you want to be on a good team, and it's fine to want to be on a good team. That's fine. But is it the best place to put your son? Is that team or program the best place to put your daughter? It's like them as an individual making decisions for them as an individual. And I use this example all the time too. Like, if you go to a top team and you're the bottom end guy, or you can go to not as good team but be the top guy, like, which one's better? Like, sometimes it might be one and sometimes it might be the other, right? So it's just it's just so it can be very frustrating, and you know this way more than I do. Just like hearing parents just like tell me or tell us how it works when they've never been out of minor hockey. Like, they're in minor hockey, right? They don't have a kid that moved on. They've never experienced beyond minor hockey, and the level of certainty that I'll have these conversations. And it's so funny just listening to them tell me how it works, and like, it's the same you say this all the time, and you've been doing it for 25 years now, of like just hearing people tell you how the hockey world works. And it just seems like there's all we can do is continue to try to share the message of it just doesn't actually matter that much. It just doesn't. And it can give you marginal gains or marginal decrements depending on what happens. But if your kid's good, they're good. If they're not good, they're not good. And like, that's the way it's going to be, So when you make decisions on, where you want to put them and what team you want to go to, what organization you want to go to, it really should be based on what is best for them as an individual, not just which is the best team.
Or for your family.
Yeah, like I had a parent explicitly say to me, like, I think I'm going to go to where the best team is. And fair enough, but is that the best math to do in your head on making decisions for your kid? Just wherever the best thing is. Well, what if that place? What if your kid hates it?
Yeah, just there's so many variables to that. I I always said this to people. I'm like, you don't want to be on a losing team. I know that. I get that. It sucks. Losing sucks. So I'm not saying go to a losing team, but you know what? I've said this a million times, is at some point in your life, like if you're a good hockey player, you're probably going to play for a team that is in a losing season. And for example, this year with my son's team, they just blew up the team to rebuild. And you know what? It sucks. It sucks. But the funny thing is there's kids on that team that come from programs that they didn't lose. They didn't know whether to shit or wind their watch when they were losing. But this is reality. You are going to lose. You're not always going to be on the first place team. You can't. So there is value. And I would never tell someone you got to go experience losing on purpose. But there's a lot of learning to do in not having success. And I'll tell you, man, I actually talked to the kids about this today, about losing, because it was a very emotional day from my perspective. I'm not saying I cried or anything like that, but I'm just looking. When I look at hockey and behaviors and stuff like that, I look at a whole lot of different things. So I was watching the season unfold, right? And we'll call it a losing season. The team started off young, but like a little history here. So I think the decision was made possibly last year that this is going to be a bad year, like actually deciding to be bad, because the decision was made to go young and rebuild, so that you're making a decision. And then funny with losing, the talk was kind of about losing for the whole year without saying we're going to lose. So we're going to be young. It's going to be tough. We're going to be in deep. The goal is to get into the playoffs. Well, that's not setting a bar real high. So to me, that talk permeates throughout the team right away. We're not talking about winning. We're talking about not being real bad. Do you know what I mean? And then as you play and you see injuries, like any, I'm not saying they weren't significant, but it was injury. Like every string of bad luck a team could get, they got. But so did the London Knights, had some bad luck, but they also had good luck, right? But I think that attitude going into it, your thought patterns and the losing versus winning mentality trickles. Whereas this team over here could lose some bodies and have some bad luck, but they always still find a way to win. Whereas here we're told, or the attitude is we're not going to be losing. You always find a way to lose, and but we're going to be young. This, that. You're already making excuses, and then it permeates throughout the team, and then you'll start to see an injury is a perfect excuse for another loss. Another injury is a perfect one, right? So you have all these excuses building up. It's like, well, yeah, we're working hard, but this is happening. It happened to everyone else too. And then as it moves on, you could see a small percentage of players that really get it. That like I'm a hockey player. This is a shit time. I'm gonna take this team, throw it on my back, or gonna do my job, do it to the best of my ability. You can see people so you got that group, and then you see another group where it's like, I'm happy to be here and playing in the OHL, right? Nothing really ever changed. Then you see others that, oh, this isn't good for me. So like the body language changes, there's more selfish play. And it's about me now, not the team. Like you can see all these different things in losing. So I'm not saying go out and lose, but at some point there's probably going to be that coming your way. So it's like if you don't experience that when you're in Bantam, Pee-wee, midget, ever, then it's a different feel. So it's like understanding what losing is not the worst thing in the world, is what I'm saying. So if you happen to play on maybe got a good coach and maybe not the best team, whatever. But anyways, if you're on a winning team, good. If you're playing on a team that's not so good, it's not the end of the world, right? If you win a tournament, that's fine. If you don't, learn the right lessons along the way, if that makes sense.
Well, and this goes to, they had the draft lottery last night. And so some of these kids that come from, like, we got a kid that could be a top pick that's been on a team that's been good since he was a little kid. Like, never had a bad year. They were always really good. Well, guess what's going to happen?
That's exactly right.
He's going to get used to say this all the time. He's going to get drafted to a team that is not good, right? So he is going to be part of the plan to make that team better. So if he's used to always being on a winning team, well, now we're going to see. Like, can he be a guy that jumps into a losing situation and manage that? And this is something that a lot of those top end kids that always played on the big Toronto teams that are always smacking everybody, like, they got to figure out how to deal with that. Can they deal with that? It's going to happen. So if you go to who's the first overall, Peterborough.
So Peterborough, right? Guelph, Sarnia, Ottawa.
Yeah. So if you go to Peterborough, who had a bad year, Guelph, Ottawa, one of these teams where they're trying to build back up and get out of the gutter, are you going to be able to deal with that as the guy that's supposed to be central to that plan? Or are you going to be like, well, I don't like this because I was winning all the time. I want to leave, and so that speaks directly to your point, is the day's going to come where they got to figure out how to be in that situation. So if you can at least be ready for that to some degree through minor hockey, and I'm not saying you have to lose necessarily. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of kids that come off these Toronto teams that adapt fine and they end up being part of programs that can build out of that hole. But it is something that you want to be aware of when you're in that situation where it's always the best situation possible, and it will only get you so far. Like, there are so many guys, even that are high OHL picks, when you think you're at the pinnacle of your hockey and you're going to the NHL and all this stuff, that just fizzle out. Like, we had a guy locally that was a top pick several years ago, and just nothing happened. And people would probably not even know his name, and that's because when he got there, that wasn't the final step, man. Right? There was a lot of work still to be done.
You're talking about
so like top end guy, but couldn't make the next step. Like, he was at the beginning of the road. It wasn't the end. It wasn't I've now achieved what I want to achieve. Like, there's still a lot that you need to learn and develop on. But I think when you're outside of that, you can see that does feel like your finish line. I can appreciate that parents and players think that. And just getting your name called in the OHL draft is like you're on your way to the NHL now. And
yeah,
it's a long
finish
road,
line
man.
for this. It's the start of great things to come. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So it does take that period to adapt. So the more situations and circumstances you can come across and preparing for that, just the better off you'll be. You'll have the better tool set to equip yourself to deal with those things. You know what I mean?